Yep. I'll tell you the story after.
Get your light on, Bob.
I'd like to call the HR meeting to order, please. Thank you for all being here. Roll call, please.
Kokendorfer,
Here?
Bowman,
Here.
Middleton,
Here.
Wypert,
Here.
Zach, Hoffman,
Here. Thank you. We have before us the minutes of our previous meeting of June 6th.
I move that we approve the minutes of June 6, 2018.
Moved by Commissioner Middleton, supported by Commissioner Wypert. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carried. The approval of our agenda. Is there any additions or corrections? I do note on item number 3, we'll have to make a motion for direct referral to finance for that item. Anything else?
Okay, pledge of allegiance to the agenda.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Let's do our agenda and then we'll do that. We forgot to do that. Okay, anything else on the agenda? Entertain a motion to approve the agenda with that correction. Moved by Commissioner Wypert, supported by Commissioner Zach. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Anybody here for public comment?
I want to introduce our new attorney, Angelina Torres.
Welcome. Thank you. Anybody else for public comment? Hearing none, we'll move to the first item. Sheriff's Office Contract Amendment Number 1 for Law Enforcement Services for Oakland County Parks and Recreation Commission for 2017-18.
I'll move it.
Moved by Commissioner Wypert, supported by Commissioner Bowman.
Good
Go
afternoon.
ahead, Under Sheriff. Thank you.
I'd like to introduce to you, we already know, is Dale Pierre, is our new Dale Cunningham.
Oh.
Finally got somebody that's going to finally work for us.
Congratulations.
Greatly.
Or our sympathy, I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. Parks and the Sheriff's Office got together and decided that it's been an extremely busy summer already in the parks, and the commission voted about 10 days ago, I believe, to request that we add 1 full-time deputy position to the parks, which will bring us to a lieutenant, a sergeant, 3 full-timers, and a plethora of part-timers to cover all the parks. There's been some concerns about some of the activity in some of the parks, so we're going to beef things up a little bit.
All right, does anybody have any question? Commissioner Middleton.
Does this involve a car, or does Parks provide the car?
No, we will provide the car as part of
So
the
it's
position.
officer.
It'll be a marked car, yes, sir, just like any other contract.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, roll call, please.
Kokendorfer,
Yes.
Bowman,
Yes.
Middleton,
Yes.
Wypert,
Yes.
Zach,
Yes.
Hoffman,
Yes. Motion carried.
Thank
Thank
you
you
very
very
much.
much. Item number 2, Department of Health and Human Services, Health Division, adjustments to the Health Division fee schedule and position changes. And this was requested for a direct referral from GG. Motion.
I'll move it.
Moved by Commissioner Wypert, supported by Mr. Kokendorfer. Go ahead.
Okay, so this proposal in front of you recommends a reorganization for additional staff and some fee schedule changes, with some new demands added to Health Division for emerging issues, which you've heard about, vapor intrusion, Legionnosis or Legionella, PFAS. It really prompted a comprehensive study and look across our organization to really see where we needed some additional staffing. In addition to these new emerging issues, our traditional services that you have heard a lot about have continued to increase with no additional staffing. So after we did a comprehensive review, it concluded with a review of the fees, which have not been looked at since 2008 or updated. So that was an additional part, and so that was what you also have in front of you are those increased fees that we were looking at. And also the revenue from these increased fees will cover the positions we're asking for.
All right, does anybody have any questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Bowman,
Yes.
Middleton,
Yes.
Wypert,
Yes.
Zach,
Yes.
Kokendorfer.
Yes.
Hoffman.
Yes. Motion carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next item, number 3, Department of Human Resources Corporate Counsel Purchasing and Compliance and Information Technology, Electronic Communications, and Use of Technology Policy. Hello?
Good
Is there a
afternoon.
motion?
I'll move it.
Moved by Commissioner Zach, supported by Commissioner Bowman.
This policy we've been working on since last year, purchasing HR, IT, and Corporation Counsel. It puts together 3 separate policies into one because it makes more sense that they all be blended together. The computer hardware, software usage, and license policy was approved by the Board of Commissioners in 1997. As you can imagine, it's changed quite a lot. Some of the terms in there don't even apply today. They're not the same business practices. That policy let departments get some of their own software. That really is not a good business practice. The second policy was a remote access policy, which that is from 2006. And then the electronic communications policy was last updated in 2014, and things have also changed a bit since then. But the main reason for putting all these together and making change to what your policy was is that the policy was never clear that IT was the point that you needed to go to get everything approved. They have to ensure the security for the network. They have to make sure that, you know, they can support what a department wants to do. Purchasing has to be involved because if a department purchases it on their own, they don't have the license. Corporation Counsel needs to be able to review the terms. Many software licenses require the county to indemnify a vendor. They have jurisdiction in law in another state. They have confidentiality things that conflict with FOIA. Those terms need to be reviewed. So this is now requiring and explaining that to all the departments. But what also has changed since '97 is you can download free software. And people don't understand that by clicking agree, even though it costs nothing and they think they're getting a great new product, they've just obligated the county to not only terms that aren't workable, but problems for IT as well. For instance, Dropbox, IT has told me that's not secure. So I know not to put sensitive documents in there, but I'm aware of other departments using that for sensitive documents. So now departments are going to receive training from HR so that they're gonna understand they can't just purchase something on their own or if it's 0, click I agree without there being consequences. So Mike, do you wanna add?
The only thing I'd like to add is that it's been a very collaborative process with the purchasing compliance team and HR as well as corporate counsel and IT obviously. And as Joellen mentioned, just the changes in technologies and trying to keep up with managing that is something that we would like to get our arms around better.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Commissioner Wiper?
So how long is the training though? I mean, it seems like it'd be months and months of getting the word out and.
So we're working right now with IT to develop a computer-based training to help educate employees on this policy. And once that's established, we'll communicate that out to the employees. We're also gonna distribute the policy and have employees sign in and acknowledge receipt of it.
Any other questions? Commissioner Middleton?
On this training, basically they'll be trained in where it says I agree or not agree. You don't click agree, you call IT. Is that the way the system will work, or will there be a few things that you can agree to?
We are actually proactively identifying things. You know, Dropbox would be an example right now we would not recommend, but go to my meeting or go to my PC. There are circumstances where there are some that we can pre-approve, and we have some of those in process for review and approval through purchasing and corp counsel. We'll have a list available on the intranet, and that is stated in the policy as well, that employees can go to and know that it's okay to click agree on this list of and software packages.
So really it's gonna save a lot of time because the employees won't have to read all of that document and then hit not agree. Yeah.
Yeah, like they read it. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Middleton,
Yes.
Wyper,
Yes.
Zach,
Yes.
Kokendorfer,
Yes.
Bowman,
Yes.
Hoffman,
Yes. Now a motion,
Motion to refer
Commissioner
that to
Middleton.
finance.
supported by Commissioner Wypert. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It'll be on tomorrow's finance agenda as a walk-on.
Okay. The next item today is Management and Budget Fiscal Services Division Compliance Office Financial and Human Capital Management System Replacement Project. Moved by Commissioner Kokendorfer, supported by Commissioner Bowman.
Good
How
afternoon,
are you?
Commissioners.
Good afternoon.
How is everybody today?
Good, thank you.
Living the
Good.
dream.
Couple things, you know, people always talk about large enterprise resource planning projects, and they talk about them as where IT departments and CIOs go to die, because they're probably the single largest implementation that'll ever take place in a government. Well, in this case, this is our second one. We did our first one, which was PeopleSoft back in the mid-2000s, but
On the financial side.
on the financial side, but we also had the HR side back in the late 90s. And the reason I wanted to start there is because we really have to talk about why we're doing this first. This is the largest operational system that our county is going to use. It manages all of our finances, all of our HR needs, everything to do with any kind of money in any way, time and labor. Everything that manages our business is managed through this ERP system, or Enterprise Resource Planning System. So we know that, and we couldn't support all the departments and divisions of county government and really support the functions of government if we didn't have a technology like this in place. And if you think about this too, we've been talking about this for a while. This has been communicated that we were going to need to replace the PeopleSoft system. I believe it's been in the budget message for the last 3 years, and the fiscal plan for at least 3 years. It's been mentioned that we're going to have to replace this system because we did some things early on to go ahead and freeze the old technology when there was some significant costs during the recession, so I'll talk more about that. So in 2004 was the first approval we received to put in PeopleSoft, so we finished the implementation in 2006 of the financials. The HR was already in place. There was significant training that took place, and it actually took 2 years, over 2 years to implement. And it was implemented in 3 different phases. Now, I don't have the exact numbers, but if I remember, the 3 phases were about $11 million to implement back in 2005 and 2006. So we'll talk more, and Lynn will get into more of the numbers. Now, in 2009, during the recession, though, we were paying a hefty sum of money to PeopleSoft every year to keep current with the system. Not only were we doing that, but every time we versioned that old technology, it cost the county about $1 million in labor, technology costs, and everything else we had to do to train and redo all our integrations we had to do for our systems. So we needed to cut our budget, so we did that. We also found that we couldn't afford $1 million every time we needed diversion, so we froze the technology. We took some of those dollars and we banked them away. We started putting those into a designation, not a debt, but a designation.
Assigned fund balance.
Assigned fund balance. They're going to keep me straight. But and then we had to do that. The other problem we ran into was cybersecurity. So if you remember what was happening in the mid-2000s, there was an increased pressure on IT departments worldwide with cyber hackers. So we started looking at our own internal systems, and we began to encrypt the databases. The old technologies didn't do that. We began to look at access to these technologies and how we authenticate. So we had to change the way we did things. So in 2016, we had been planning for a while to go ahead and replace it. We issued an RFP, a request for proposal, and we received 18 responses. 18 responses. So, and the reason I want to talk about that is because it took a long time to get to our final decision, because first we had to cull through 18 responses. We had to get down to a manageable group, which was 4 at the time. We narrowed it down to 4, and we began bringing them in for demonstrations. How does your technology work? All of the functioning departments and the people here, and we have Lynn Sonkis, the manager of fiscal services, and we have Christy Slauson. the manager of workforce administration, correct? Did I say that right? I got it. And so they actually led the committee that had other folks on it.
Purchasing as well was
Yeah.
part of that. The key stakeholders, we also had representatives from the treasurer's office who participated in IT, were
Yeah.
part of the review process.
But what happened after we got those down to those four and we started getting demonstrations, we started to look at all of the different nuances of this. What kind of technology should we use? What should we do going forward to go ahead and maximize and maximize the value but minimize some of the costs to county government? And we narrowed down to two. And what happened then is we had them come in, present again, but they created what's called a sandbox. And the reason I want to go there is because we actually got the technology loaded so we could actually play with it. We could actually have people use it. We could have people try different functionality with the HR side and again, purchasing and fiscal services. And then we narrowed it down that we had our final award. Now, the average life of an ERP system, a big technology like this, is 10 to 12 years. So we implemented in 2006, here we are in 2018. There's some talk that these could last up to 20 years in the newer versions of the technology. So we will look at how we implement and how we go forward with our technology to see how long we can make this last. Not guaranteeing 20, but we did get through 12 with PeopleSoft alone. And that was freezing PeopleSoft back in 2009. So there was a lot of things that we had to do.
And again, we've been on HR since
1998, yeah, 1998. Keep reminding me. So the RFP went out and we looked at the technology. This was our opportunity to go to the cloud for ERP. We didn't see a reason why we needed to go ahead and build a bunch of servers here, go ahead and hire a bunch of people to manage those servers and do what we needed to do with a new ERP system. So we're looking at software as a service or going to the cloud for the ERP. Now, why is that important? Two things. One, when it upgrades, remember I was talking about that $1 million a year every time PeopleSoft upgrades? We're not going to need to spend near that because it's more of a configured technology than it is a technology that we would modify, actually code-wise. And it will be much less effort to go ahead and version the technology as the company versions. I think PeopleSoft, it was almost on an every other year cycle they would version, and then we would have to version our technology. We're not going to have to do as much there, so we're going to save money. The other is it turns the heavy capital expense of this technology into an operating expense. So instead of just buying the software, buying all the infrastructure, owning it, and then having to replace our servers over time and do all that, we're going to rent it. We're going to lease it. That means we're going to use their technology that resides out in the cloud or SaaS environment, and we're simply going to pay them a fee to do that. And we'll talk more about that from the financial side. Now, the other piece that I wanted to make sure we understand is there is the cybersecurity piece. This county has invested an incredible amount of money in cybersecurity to make sure we're keeping our personally identifiable information or our corporate data very safe. Well, this also has significant cybersecurity ramifications because it is going to be a SaaS model that will have the proper security in place. And when we're consuming it, we're going to have secure connections to it, and we're architecting that through IT to make sure that we have secure connections for the power users. That will be many of the people that are out there using it, are all the time and labor people that are going to have to put in the information into the system to make payroll work. All that information is going to be part of a very secure connection to the cloud. So we're excited about where it'll be. But the other piece of it is when you deal with web technologies or you deal with cloud or SaaS, software as a service technologies, they're very intuitive. When we first put PeopleSoft in, when we lifted out the old KPMG performance series, there was significant training. Matter of fact, I believe there was massive business process reengineering that took place to be able to consume the kind of templated parts of that technology to be able to fit into our business process and vice versa. This is a much more intuitive technology where we believe the training won't nearly be as much and required of people to be able to use it. Again, saving some costs down the road. So we chose Workday. Workday is a leader in, one thing I forgot to mention before I go there. The average cost of a breach, and I had our folks do some digging, per record in the United States is $225 per record. Not by system, per record. We have hundreds of thousands of records, if not millions of records here at the county that we would need to protect. So cybersecurity is very important. I don't want to forget that was a main push for us here. But we chose Workday. They're a cloud SaaS provider of ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning. It was a very user-friendly, intuitive, and it had great workflow. The enhancements that we saw, the technological enhancements that we saw coming from an old frozen version from 2009 of an ERP to 2018, we're going to have significant operational enhancements and functional enhancements that we will get through the technology as well. So we're looking to streamline our business. And then the architecture of this technology was by far the best. And we looked at some big players. We talked and had demos and those sandboxes from large companies. And by far, this technology was best suited for where we wanted to go as a county. Now, what it will provide, the other hard part of a system like this is getting data out of it. Real good for putting data in, but getting data out. These are going to have real-time data dashboards that this system will provide, which should enhance the ability for the folks in fiscal services and HR to do their business.
And I just want to point out also will enable the end user departments better access and more real-time information to their data. They will have dashboard capabilities to be able to look at, drill down on that data without having to call someone specifically to run a report or taking the time to run a report or query themselves.
Excellent. Now, last thing I want to touch on before I turn it over to the folks here with me is there were several issues with the current PeopleSoft. We talked about the good things about going to Workday. We talked about going to the cloud and SaaS. The problem we have with the existing technology is there aren't too many people that work on that technology anymore either. One of the largest issues we have in information technology is the right resources to do the right jobs. There aren't many people out there. It's an aging technology, and we have to move away. We froze it. I talked about that. We haven't updated in a while, but we did hire a third-party company that helped us maintain it. There was some savings there. I believe we were saving about $350,000 a year on not having to update it. The other piece of it is there was really no self-service and none of this that Lynn just talked about that would allow the end users to be able to take care of themselves and help themselves. And each year we hold on to this technology, the risk becomes much higher. That we are going to have some sort of data issues, or we aren't going to be able to find the right people to maintain it, and then we're not going to be able to do the core business of county government. So that's kind of like the history, the why we're doing it and what we're doing. Now I'd like to turn it over to Christy first, because she's going to talk about some of the HR ramifications, and then Lynn's going to talk about the financial pieces of the program. All yours.
So the Workday system will impact the entire organization, departments, management, employees, and retirees. And some of the enhanced features that the users can expect from the system, which they've touched on a little bit, the intuitive and ease of navigation throughout the system from functional to end users. It can be used on mobile devices, and there is a Workday app that is available. Employees and retirees will have access to a variety of self-service functionality, and now it is very limited, and it is a view-only information. There is a management tool with access to reports and dashboards with drilling capability to detailed transaction data. There is no downtime of the system for end users. The workflow capability and ease of approval paths. The increased efficiencies with current business processes across all areas. There is multiple training platforms available in Workday based on the needs of the users, from community, functional to end users. And we recognize that with the total replacement of PeopleSoft, it will be labor intensive on all of those involved. So to support the replacement and oversee of the new system, we are requesting to create a new classification titled Enterprise Resource Planning ERP Administrator at a salary grade 18 overtime exempt. And we are requesting to create 2 full-time eligible general fund, general purpose ERP administrator positions, 1 in human resources and 1 in fiscal services. And these positions will play an important role in the successful implementation and ongoing business process support of Workday to oversee and coordinate continuous upgrades, testing, security, training, and efficiency improvements into the future. And I'm going to turn it over to Lynn to talk about the funding and the timeline.
So how are we gonna pay for all of this? This isn't anything necessarily new. We've been talking about this for a number of years now. We have an assignment within the general fund. That assignment is brought to the Finance Committee and the full Board of Commissioners with each year-end report. We established the first assignment for this project initiative back in 2011. It was initially started out at $3 million, and we were banking savings that we were achieving, and we're up to $10 million. That's been the assignment for the last couple of years. We also present that assignment within the contingency packet that's presented to the Finance Committee every couple of weeks for each Finance Committee meeting. It's part of the equity report. So the resolution that's brought before Finance Committee tomorrow will actually show us utilizing that $10 million assignment as well as some technology assignment for the implementation of the system. If you refer to if you're in your packet, there is an exhibit. I believe it's on page PDF 38 of your electronic packet. That exhibit shows the breakdown of the various costs that it will take to implement this new system, and it's showing the breakdown from 2018 through 2023. So if you look about halfway down the exhibit, you'll see that the one-time costs for implementation are estimated to be just shy of $9.8 million, with the majority of that being implementation services that we will obtain through Sierra Cedar. So Workday is the product, the software service provider, and Sierra Cedar will be our implementer for this project. From there, we do have ongoing costs. This will no longer be a static system that we use right now. We've been on the same version of PeopleSoft since 2009. We've been frozen, but we will be continuing with Workday to utilize this system and with continuous updates, real-time updates. It's more efficient for not only for us for upgrade purposes, but as well for Workday, because all of their customers are on the same version of the software. So there's no customization with this software. It's all configuration that allows them to deploy the same version out to everyone at the same time. You have the ability to turn on or turn off certain updates that they send to you. So again, $9.8 million is about the amount that's needed for the one-time costs, and then there are reoccurring costs, the majority of which are payments to Workday for access to the system. So the ongoing recurring costs equate to around $2.2 million. Of that's about $1.8 million of that is the payment that we will need to make to Workday to access the system. And I do want to just back up for a moment to indicate, obviously this exhibit, there's a lot of detail in here. The other piece of this is there is a one-time cost, and feel free to jump in, to expand our internet service provider bandwidth to be able to utilize the system efficiently and not have any, I guess, drag time with utilizing the software.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing that up, Lynn. So remember I talked about that secure connection and the ability to use the technology. If you're not using the technology from our own servers, there could be lag time or there could be latency in the communication. So we're going to enhance the bandwidth that we use over the pipe that we're going to transmit through. We're going to make it larger, we're going to make it more secure, and we're going to make it direct. That means we're going to be directly communicating with the software, and not all the other traffic of the county won't impact the performance of the system. We realize that this is a big, heavy lift. This is one of the biggest systems we're going to use as a county. We need to make sure we have the right pipe and the right connectivity so people aren't sitting at their desk sending a command, waiting, sending a command, waiting, the old mainframe days. So we're going to make sure we avoid that.
Commissioner Zach.
Okay. Along with Commissioner Middleton, I'm one of the people around the table that voted for PeopleSoft.
Yes.
And that was a big ticket item, and this is another, big ticket item. How much did it cost us per year, like a recurring cost, before we froze the PeopleSoft?
Well, before we froze, it was about $500,000 we paid PeopleSoft alone per year.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had the ongoing cost of supporting the technology, which we will have with this. So it's not like we just divorce ourselves of every bit of cost. But we had people that did that, but then we had the upgrades that came every other year. And again, that was almost $1 million every time with staff time. We had to get the operational people to test. We had to then work with PeopleSoft to make sure all our integrations work. So there was a number of costs that were associated with it. And over time on-premise, which is having it here, versus being in the cloud is about the same cost.
So we're not necessarily because I see we are hiring several dedicated positions to run this that we didn't have previously. So I'm just looking at, are we adding on additional cost with this system? I'm not.
When it comes to people, directly with people, the answer is yes, because of the administration of this technology and what we're doing. The other piece was, remember, we had the HR side in 1998 and we implemented the financials in 2006. We had different people in different departments managing that. And then at IT, we were able to grow internal resources to go ahead and take care of that over time. Go ahead.
So if you'll remember, when we implemented PeopleSoft, I had a deputy director position, Art Holdsworth, and Art was dedicated for several years just for PeopleSoft. Then with the budget reductions, I sacrificed that position because I thought it was more important to have more accountants than one deputy director, and we were done with the PeopleSoft project, so we don't have that resource any longer. And I think, Phil mentioned one very important point, and that because there is no new versioning, you're going to need, and it's basically the versioning is taking place every day through this cloud, you're going to need dedicated administrators continuously now to work through any changes that might come on a more routine basis.
Twice a year.
Yeah.
The delivered updates are twice a year, but there are bug fixes, things like that that maybe need to push out
So
on
I
a
think
routine
you should look at
basis.
these two positions, and not only for implementation,
But
but
ongoing-
in lieu of the
ongoing.
versioning process that used to occur with PeopleSoft.
And then also one more thing about these people as administrators of the technology. You have to know everybody that's in there. You have to know exactly who's in there, and if someone leaves, we have to know that they're gone and they have to get out of there. So there's gonna be a number of administrative things they're gonna have to do with the technology to make sure that the right people are using the technology as well to protect the security of that data.
And I'm sorry, if I could just add one more thing, it's more of a human aspect. So, and I don't, so we're hearing about numbers and machinery, but I can tell you, when we went through PeopleSoft, and I was not directly involved, I was just there to support, get resources, Art was the manager and budget. But I had people coming in my office, and I know that this happened at IT too. They were so exhausted because they were trying to do their day-to-day stuff and the implementation. Some of them were close to breaking down and crying, and getting very little sleep, because when it comes close to implementation time, and you have to do it, around the year-end cycle, it was, go lives are tough, but this is
the biggest go live.
As Phil said, this is like the biggest go live we can ever do. It's almost like our equivalent sending someone to the moon. So, yeah, I think these two positions, I'm actually the one that begged them to ask for the positions because I'm worried about staff.
The last time we did this too, HR was already live with PeopleSoft and we had a built-in integration. So this is a more, critical implementation than the fact that we're doing both HR and financials at the same time.
And then the selection process.
Yes.
The group that were on it playing in the sandbox, was it a unanimous decision that you all liked the same product?
Actually, so we went through a scoring process, and Scott could probably be better to explain. It was very much a standardized, templated process to make sure everybody had their voice be heard.
Yeah, we came up with a quite extensive matrix, and we ended up, we looked at it as a consensus. So when we shortlisted, the whole group worked on it, the evaluation committee, plus we had end users at all times involved in the background, looking at things and giving support, so that the evaluation committee would meet and they would be the speakers for each one of those groups.
And it was consensus.
Consensus scoring the whole way through. And the sandbox was really the trick. We had demos, we've all sat through, and you see you see all the bells and whistles. But the sandbox, we got to touch it, feel it, and.
Actually use it.
Use it, and people really.
And we had the end users,
End
the
users.
staff that are gonna be
Yeah,
using it.
the whole purchasing
and-
department was using it.
Didn't you guys have like the same scenarios for each
Yes.
system?
Yeah.
And then it came down to where we did have some outstanding questions that forced them to even come back again. We weren't, we had the final two vendors. There was outstanding questions on each side. We made them come back and actually work with the functional units. And for instance, Workday came and worked with HR to make sure they met the HR needs. And the other technology we were looking at was Oracle. And Oracle had some technological issues that we were concerned about, and they worked with IT to go through those technological issues. So we probably went 2 steps farther than most governments do when they're looking at these types of technologies, because we wanted to make sure that we know this decision is going to live with us for a long time. We wanted to make sure we were making the right one.
And as a side, like, we did reference checks. And the reference checks, we have 40 of us in a room talking to the people in Colorado.
The other governments, yeah.
Or different things like that. And it was quite extensive. We had 2-hour reference checks back and forth. And that was also a big part of this, the deliverable at the end.
That's why it was a 2-year process.
Yeah, it took a long time.
And it helps,
Yeah.
any big platform change is monumental. And you're trying to anticipate and prepare the best you can.
And Commissioner, you bring up a very good point about having everybody involved. That's why we created a steering committee that was actually co-chaired by HR and by finance. And they involved the people that needed to be involved, because the last thing we want to do is push down a change and then everybody say, we didn't know anything about it, or we don't know what it does, or it's not functional. So that was very much part of our process.
The other thing is, obviously it was from the subject matter experts, and then we all work with the various departments throughout the county and know of certain issues that are needed to be addressed. Well, during the implementation process itself, the implementer and our departments will be working with end user departments during that configuration design sessions on how we're setting up the system. I'm not gonna sit up here and say this is gonna be the perfect system, there are not gonna be any issues, because there's no such thing. It doesn't exist. But, I think that we got a lot of feedback from the people within the selection committee that they thought this product was a lot more user-friendly, I'll say, and that would lend itself to a smoother implementation with the end user departments. It's more, just user intuitive to use.
And the other piece of the reference checks, and I'll make it clear too, we don't just talk to the CIO or the finance director. We actually talk to those using the technology. We were very enlightened by a number of entities that let us talk to the people that actually touch the technology. Because what we heard from the top wasn't necessarily what we heard from the people using it. So we made sure we did our due diligence there.
Finally, this company, how long have they been in business? Roughly?
2010. They're actually the old PeopleSoft people. After all their agreements expired.
They all moved down and formed a new company.
And Oracle bought PeopleSoft.
Yeah.
Anything else, Commissioner Zach?
Thank you.
Commissioner Kokendorfer?
Sure, just thank you for the presentation. You guys answered nearly all the questions that I had here. So I'm the IT partner at my law firm. So I make decisions for 10 people. I can't imagine the complexities of having to go through these RFPs for a system like this. So thank you very much. The one question I have, and it's an issue that I've been struggling personally at my business, is the idea of moving all of your data or data here into the cloud, redundancy. What processes are in place to prevent the risk of the loss of data wherever that data is being stored remotely?
So we go through a very rigorous cybersecurity and data, disaster recovery part of this. And that was one of the things that also sold us on Workday, because they have a very robust backup and the ability to have redundant data sets. Now that's the other piece of going to the cloud that benefits us, because they can have clouds in, I forget how many locations. They have 3 locations. So they're all over the place. So they don't have to have all their eggs in one basket. You have everything in a data center here, then we have a disaster recovery place we go to as well. But they're able to do that in a redundant way. So in other words, if one goes down, we're going to be able to operate with the other.
Great.
And then that's where the security comes into play as well, because some people worry that the cloud is not as secure. I'm here to tell you it's probably more secure, because they have many corporations. If you look at the list of clients for Workday, they're all over the world with people that they have in these cloud scenarios as well. So we did look at that very carefully to make sure our data was redundant and backed up. But one more thing, it is still our data. So when we go through the contractual phase, we will also have exit strategies in place if we ever need to get our data out.
That's my next question. You guys are good. That's
Yeah,
exactly what I was
yeah.
going to ask you about. You know,
Yeah.
whenever our contractual obligations end, how do we make sure that we get our data back?
Yeah, and that will all be set in the contract as we go forward. And we've been very good. Corporation Counsel has done incredible work on our cloud technology contracts. And I even worked with a group, and Jim Taylor, our CTO, worked with a group nationally to create terms and conditions for cloud contracts. And we are using many of those terms and conditions today to protect ourselves. So, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Excellent. Commissioner Middleton?
Yeah, this CSC part of it, are they part of Workday? They're going to administer this, or maybe?
You're talking about Sierra Cedar?
Yeah.
Sierra Cedar is our implementer, so.
Okay, are they connected to Workday, or is that?
They work with Workday on a regular basis implementing. They are actually the ones that bid. So they bid for the implementation and with the Workday product. And they work collaboratively with Workday as a company to be one of their implementers.
Okay.
And so last time when we did PeopleSoft, we used a company called eVerge. And eVerge worked very closely with PeopleSoft to make sure that they were doing the proper implementation. Same thing here. So they will simply be our implementer. Whether we use them for anything in the future will be determined if we have a need where we might need an external resource for anything. But for this project here, they will simply implement the technology on our behalf.
Okay, the last question, will this work both on thin client and thick client?
Excellent question, Commissioner. Yes.
Wait, you have to explain that to the
Yes,
other
yes.
members, because.
So yeah, that was a long time ago. That was 2004. We were doing that as well. And what we were talking about there was, do we need a thick client PC or a very robust PC to run this through a very robust network? Or could we simply have an internet-based device, like a lot of people are using these e-books now, and could it run? It can run on both of those kinds of devices because it is based through a remote connection to the cloud. So it doesn't need a heavy operating system to run.
Good question. Commissioner Wiper?
And the PeopleSoft, well, this is, $21 million sounds like an enormous amount of money. PeopleSoft was 14
and then they had ongoing costs on
and
top of
6
that.
and 8, and ongoing costs. So it's really not, in real-time dollars, it's really not out of line.
Well, actually, if you look at some of the dollars we had to spend in the mid-2000s to do this,
We did it in like 2 or 3 phases.
3 phases, yeah, 3 phases. I believe it was about $11 million for the implementation. It was $3 million to buy the software at the time, and then all the ongoing costs. The beauty of this contract is the ongoing costs are built into many of our consumption costs. When we consume from Workday, we will pay a bill.
I think the first phase was like 8 million and the second phase was like 4 million.
Yeah, it was
a lot of money, but you're right. If you factor in inflation, this is a lot less money
Yeah.
than the PeopleSoft implementation was.
And then the second question, on employees, in attracting employees, are they, for IT, are they more likely to like it that you have this better technology?
We are more likely to find resources to work on this technology than we are on the legacy PeopleSoft technology. That's for sure.
Okay.
It is more modern. It is a SaaS model, where that's where technology is going today. Yes. Now, whether it's easier for us to recruit people is a different story. That's a whole different issue. But as far as the technology goes, this is a modern technology that we will be able to live with for a long time.
But if we hire new employees, it'll be easier to train them on our system.
Correct.
Commissioner Bowman?
This is a rare circumstance where I'm actually familiar with Workday. I do utilize actually the system within the private sector. So I'm happy to see that we're bringing it to the county. My question relates to that diversion that you had spoke of. There were some cost savings associated, I think about $350,000. But my inquiry relates to, were there any negative implications as a result of that diversion-related process that opened us up for availability?
So you're talking about when we froze PeopleSoft back in 2008? Yeah. So we did work out the business issues that were going to happen. One, we weren't going to version anymore. which means we knew we were gonna lock the technology into 2009. The question we asked ourselves was, were there gonna be any improvements to PeopleSoft that we were gonna take advantage of over those next 9 years? Or are we simply gonna keep paying that money and not really gaining the value for that money? Now, what it did do was we knew, and we consciously made this decision, we knew that we were gonna have to replace it. So the first thing we did is we went to PeopleSoft and said, what if we simply versioned PeopleSoft from 2009 to 2018? We already own it, we're already trained on it, what would happen? Let's just say the response was very interesting. The response was, go back and pay all the years of maintenance that you didn't pay at $500,000 a year, and then we'll talk about versioning. So I had a very short response for them. But we moved on immediately. But we knew in 2009 that we were making a business decision that by freezing that technology, we were going to have to replace it. It was only a matter of when. I think getting 9 years out of a frozen technology with what we were able to do was pretty darn good. But we didn't know that at the time. We just knew that it was going to have to be replaced. So that was the business side of it. Now the other downside, by the way, what we did do, and I think I know where you're headed with your question as well, you still have to update certain things like tax tables and other pieces. We hired Rimini Street, which was a third-party company, to come in and perform those functions so that it wouldn't just die at 2009. And we also upgraded the underlying databases at around that time and shortly thereafter to make sure we were current there. So we hired a company to help us keep the pieces current that needed to be current longer term. That's why the $500,000 was only a $350,000 savings, because we were paying this company to do third party, yes.
Anything else? Roll call, please, on the motion.
I could just
Go
add
ahead.
the timeline for this.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
working on wrapping up contract negotiations with Workday and Sierra Cedar. From there, once we have that in place, we will start a business process alignment, the BPA, which is expected to take 12 to 14 weeks with Sierra Cedar. We're going to work with all of HR, finance, purchasing, treasurer's office to work through day in the life type scenarios, year-end processes that we do. That workshop is expected to take 12 to 14 weeks to complete, and the focus will be on the what and the why of what we do, and not necessarily design sessions. From that, they will issue a report to us for the implementation scope and timelines. The preliminary timeline that we received was to phase this in with starting with HR and payroll first, taking 12 months to implement, and then financials with a 9-month implementation starting 5 months into the HR implementation schedule. So we will be engaging all users and departments during the implementation process and encourage change management processes, standardization of Workday processes that are in line with this best practices. Again, there's no customization with Workday. It's configuration, which will lend itself to more efficient, I think, upgrades and updates in the future.
Thank you. Roll call.
Wiper?
Yes.
Zach?
Yes.
Kokendorfer?
Yes.
Bowman?
Yes.
Middleton?
Yes.
Hoffman?
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion carried. Thank you guys very much.
So it was referred to us?
All right, the other two.
It was referred to us about it.
Yes, right, it was backwards, it's gonna go to finance tomorrow. All right, the last item then is communications, receive and file.
I make a motion to receive
Moved by
and file.
Commissioner Wiper, supported by Commissioner Bowman. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same, motion carries. Is there any other business today? We are adjourned. Thank everybody.